I am going to go ahead and say hello to everyone. Very happy to be here again with all of you as we are concluding our three-part series today with yet another amazing presentation around developing personal excellence as a leader during crisis. Our webinars are designed to invite your feedback via chat box and questions and answers. As you are logging in today, please feel free to start using your chat feature and share with us where you are joining from. It's been truly amazing to see people joining in on our webinars from all across the globe. I am Petra Rassel, Head of Coaching here at LeggUP. With me today is also Michael Radigan, LeggUP's Head of Member Experience. We are a professional development platform specializing in career coaching and helping organizations transform and future-proof their workforce through development of their leaders and employees. You are joining us today for the final part of our three-part series, 3 Steps to Personal Excellence. It is our mission to support leaders to rise to the challenge created by COVID-19, and our webinar today is titled Rising to the Occasion. We greatly enjoyed supporting you here each week over the last couple of months, and I'm excited to offer yet another deep dive into self-leadership and how we can set ourselves and our remote teams up for greater success while working from home under these unprecedented circumstances. It is my true pleasure and distinct honor to introduce our expert on today's topic, Rising to the Occasion, LeggUP coach, executive and leadership coach, keynote speaker, and expert corporate strategy consultant. Joining us live from Lisbon, Portugal, Miguel Figueiredo. Miguel draws from over 20 years of experience in leading international corporations through mergers and acquisitions, with a special focus on creating high-achieving teams and developing innovative corporate cultures through coaching, training, and organizational development. A highly accomplished business and thought leader, Miguel will highlight opportunities for improvement, adaptation, and innovation that crisis offers to an organization and the specific leadership skills and mindsets required to lead under pressure with immediate and decisive action. Please welcome Miguel. Thank you for being here today with us to share your insights and experiences. And without further ado, I hand it over to you, Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra, for that lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you talking about such a dear topic to me, and especially in these particular circumstances where unfortunately it turns this topic so relevant. By the way, I really hope that everyone is safe and both yourselves, your families, and your teams in your companies. And I'm just looking forward to go ahead and share with you my thoughts on this topic and see your comments and questions. We'll have about 1 hour. My plan is to make a presentation in less time than that, so that we have plenty of time at the end for any comments and additional questions. So, with no further ado, allow me to share my screen so that I can share the presentation with you. So, before we begin with the topic, just a quick note on a little bit about my story. So I'm coaching mostly leaders and high achievers to get even better by achieving long-lasting positive change in their behaviors for themselves and their teams. And this was not always the case. I mean, I started my career 25 years ago working in big corporations, and it took me about 10 years to understand that my personality was more of the entrepreneurial kind. And so when I realized that, I left the company I was at, a telecom company, and I created my own company, a digital marketing agency. And it took me, again, 10 more years to realize that the thing that got me going every day was developing my team to see their potential just coming to life and seeing them accomplishing amazing things. So when the opportunity arose to sell the company, I didn't hesitate it. And so since then, I've been studying how we can effectively change behavior so that we become better at what we do, and we can effectively rise to the occasions that we face and to the challenge and new challenges we face every day while we are working. And this is, in fact, a great moment to be talking about rising to the occasion, because it's fairly easy to rise to the occasion when we are in times of abundance. It's when we are in times of crisis that is difficult to keep rising to the occasion. And that happens because when we are in a crisis, a lot of things are changing around us. And with that change comes a lot of uncertainty. And with the uncertainty, we get this sense of lack of control. And the lack of control might give us this feeling of disempowerment, so that we are not able to do much with the situation. But the thing is, it doesn't need to be this way. I mean, when we think about it, when we look all around it, the core of life itself is about crisis. I mean, it is in the moments of crisis that species and nature adapt and thrive and keep on growing. I mean, take, for example, the mimic octopus, a species that learn how to camouflage not only the color of their skin, but also to change the shape so that they can mimic their prey and get closer to them before they jump into the attack. Take also the tawny owl that didn't need millennia to adapt. Tawny owl lives in woodlands in snowy places, and the feathers were very white. And with the climate change, the snow exists no longer, so they stop having that camouflage. But the thing is, in less than 30 years, they were able to change the color of their feathers. So now they are brown so that they can camouflage again and keep on thriving. Mice in Paris, they develop resistance to poison. So the city of Paris is now with a huge problem in their hands because they can't solve it with poisoning. But of course, not all innovations in nature go on well. I mean, take, for example, this case of the rain frog in South Africa. I mean, what the hell is this, right? What happened here? For sure, this is an innovation, an adaptation that didn't go as well as expected. So not all cases are good. But all these cases comes from moments of crisis where the species are pushed to go harder and change in order to adapt. And that is the key in moments of crisis, being able to adapt. And it's interesting to see, for example, that in the Asian cultures, the word crisis can mean a lot of different things. For example, in Mandarin, the word crisis is used in two very specific environments. It's used for both describing something that is danger, but also used to describe an opportunity. And when you think about it, I mean, crisis does have these two sides. It can be perceived as danger, but you can always see a moment of crisis as an opportunity. I mean, when you look at investors that have that are high on cash flow, I mean, moments of crisis are the best moments to invest, right? So you can look at different perspectives into a crisis. So, but why is it that some people just focus on the danger when they face a crisis and others see opportunities? Well, this has to do with the fact that reality is just too complex to be absorbed by our five senses. So instead of trying to absorb everything, we select the pieces of information around us that we think are relevant, and we build a perception about it. Now, a good question to pose is whether, when in crisis, do you build a perception of the situation that allows you to keep on adapting, or do you build a perception that just leads you to fall back into those old behaviors that you are familiar with, that leaves you in your comfort zone and just keep on doing the same things over and over? Well, there is this quote that that is from Charles Hand. He is a renowned author on change management, and I think it's really appropriate for these times. The things and the ways which got you here where you are seldom are the things to keep you there, not to mention the things that will lead you to thrive and grow, especially in moments of crisis. So changing your behavior is a must when you are facing a crisis. You need to remain calm and be able to focus on innovating, so that by innovating, you are able to adapt to the new circumstances. Now, of course, innovating and remaining calm only works if you reach a balance between directing your energy not only to creativity, but also in making sure that you, your team, and your company are safe. So in fact, you need to secure that before you are able to direct your energies to creativity. By safety, what I mean is you need to secure immediate survival. In this particular situation that we are living worldwide, what it means is to make sure that you are reducing all what becomes superfluous costs in these days that we are living, and making sure that you have cash flow for the next 18 months. If you don't have this needs to be your priority, because it's very difficult to be creative thinking, for example, what is the best furniture for your home if your home is on fire, right? So first of all, make sure that if you are on fire, you put out the fire. Then you can focus on the future. How will your business change during the next 1, 2, 3 years? In other words, what are the best behaviors that a leader should show in this time of crisis, so that he can push and drive their team to do the necessary changes in the business? How can you rise to this occasion? Well, in order to do this, there are 4 steps that you need to put in place in terms of your attitude and your behavior. The first one is making sure that you fail fast. Let me explain you what I mean by this by giving you an example. By explaining you, I don't know if you are familiar with the marshmallow challenge. Perhaps you have done this. This has been done in a lot of team building meetings. But basically, this marshmallow challenge is about splitting people into small teams and giving each team a set of resorts. So raw spaghetti, a quart, duct tape, and a marshmallow. And the goal is, within a time frame of 18 minutes, to be able to build the tallest tower possible with the marshmallow on the top. So going through the challenge more or less looks like this image that I'm showing you. What is interesting here is to analyze, to segment the results by by different segments, and analyze what are the profiles that have the best results and the worst results. So let me share with you some of the findings. So on average, people that have responded to this challenge are able to build towers with that are 50 centimeters tall. That is about 20 inches tall. Now, a group that consistently falls below this average are lawyers. So don't trust lawyers to build you stuff, right? Of course, and luckily for us all, the group that gets the best results, so they are able to build something that is twice the size of the average, are architects. And that's good because that means that our buildings are in the right hands. Now, the group that consistently gets the worst results, and by worst results, I'm talking about half the average, those people are MBA students. Let that sink in. MBA students get the worst results ever. Engineers, excluding civil engineers, get better results but are still below average. CEOs get results that are just slightly above average. And the group that has the second best results ever are kindergartens. So kids with no formal education have better results than CEOs, engineers, lawyers, and MBA students. So clearly the MBA students are the rain frogs in this story. Now, why is this? Why does this happen this way? It has to do with how these different groups approach the challenge. The MBA students, like most managers, by the way, that didn't get much better results than the MBA students on average, what they do is they face each challenge as they face any project. So first, they spend the first part of the time by assigning roles and deciding what will be their approach. Then they start planning, evaluating what is the best approach to build the tower. They discuss this a lot. And only when they come to a conclusion what is the approach they are choosing, they start building. And with building comes problems. And when they finally finish building, they realize that the end result is not what they were expecting. But now they don't have much time to fix it. They don't have certainly time to try another different way. So they get really stressed and they are not able to make a result that is much better than what was the first result they got. Kindergartens, on the other hand, they do a very different approach. They don't discuss roles, they don't discuss approaches, they just start playing with the materials. They just start building immediately. They see immediately what is working and what is not working. And they abandon what is not working and they build on top of what is working. So by going through experiment to experiment to experiment, they understand, they learn, and they get better and better results. And this is what is required when you are facing circumstances where time is a constraint and when you don't know enough of the situation to develop the necessary approach and competencies to face it in the best terms possible. And when you think about it, that's exactly what happens when you are in a crisis. So experimenting is a fundamental part when you are in a crisis in order to find solutions that help you best deal with the situation. You know, in startup world, experimenting has a very nice wording. It's called growth hacking, which sums up with this, is keep on experimenting until you find the path of things that really work out and really puts you in the path to adapt and thrive under the circumstances. And that's what allows you not to become a rain frog. So that's step one, making sure that you fail fast, that you acknowledge failure, that you don't take it personally, that you understand it's part of the process so that you keep on experimenting and experimenting. The second step is making sure that you eliminate toxic patterns of thought. Toxic patterns of thought are beliefs that you develop through your life that were helpful in a particular moment in your life, but at this moment they are putting you down, they are limiting you. One of these toxic patterns of thought is victimization, is when you see yourself as a victim of the circumstances. This big crisis is happening, there's nothing you can do. While this can be comforting in the sense that it takes you away the responsibility to fix things, it also contributes a lot to the sense of feeling disempowered. And that doesn't help you to solve and to act and solve the situation. In fact, you need the opposite. You need to assume responsibility, which is not saying that you are responsible for the crisis, but you are response-able. So responsibility, you have the ability to respond to the situation. Another thing that is, in a way, another face of the same coin is wishful thinking. People that believe that, okay, we shouldn't face the negative side of the crisis, and we just need to think real hard, real positive, and things will be just all right. Well, wishful thinking can also be very dangerous, because while it gives you this optimism, but also doesn't really necessarily enables you to act. It can just put you in a holding position, just waiting for things to sort them out themselves and get to the right path. Perfectionism is a different pattern of toxic pattern, but is also very negative in this kind of situations, is when you are always aiming for the perfect outcome. Now, I see a lot of people, especially in job interviews, saying that, well, thing that I don't like about myself is I'm a perfectionist, but when in fact they truly are proud about that. Well, let me tell you that perfectionism is really something that doesn't work in your favor, particularly in these kind of situations of crisis. Perfectionism has two sides that are, two effects that are negative. The first one is they make you spend a lot of time just pruning one solution. And while you are doing all this pruning, you are losing the opportunity to do all those experimentations. And the other effect is that when you aim for perfection, and you do know that perfection is something that does not exist, you are setting your expectations so high that there is no other option than to fail to meet your expectations. And this again and again, by just failing your expectations, what this does is destroys your self-esteem and your self-confidence. Another variant of perfectionism is maximizing, looking for maximizing rather than satisfying. When it's not just about getting a need satisfied, but you need to get the best solution ever. Everything becomes relative. You are always searching for the best solution possible. And you may fall out in the same trap as perfectionism. Finally, we have anxiety and constant stress. People that perceive the crisis as something so big and so dangerous that what they are doing is they are just triggering the fight or flee response of the body. So you are injecting adrenaline in your body, and with that you are accelerating the rate that you pump blood in your veins. The blood becomes thicker so that you don't have to, in case you are fighting, right? It's your life that is in danger. If you cut yourself, you don't bleed to death. Your muscles get swallowed so that you can either fight or you can run away. So you are in all constant inflammation. All your secondary systems just simply shut down. Your immunitary response, your cellular recuperation is shut down, and you get less oxygen to your brain, meaning that you think in poor times, so you take worse decisions. And this is the worst thing you can do in a moment of crisis, taking bad decisions. So all these patterns are terrible when you're dealing with and facing a crisis. Now, unfortunately, due to time constraints, we are not able to go through what you can do to eliminate all these toxic patterns of thought. So perhaps now it's a good time to make a poll among our audience to see which of these toxic patterns is more common with you, and so that we can tackle it and see what you can do in order to eliminate that. So most likely you are seeing now a poll in your screen. Just choose which of these patterns of thought you tend to fall into, and let's discuss the one with the highest results.
Just give it another minute here. They're still coming in.
By the way, if you have any questions.
Oh, go ahead, Miguel. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that I'm trying to have to keep the pace fast in this webinar, so that we have plenty of time for comments and questions at the end. But if you have any comments or questions, please just put it on the Q&A box or chat box, and we'll be happy to talk about it.
Also, we have another feature in the chat, which is the raise hand. So if there's anything that pops up for you in between, feel free to utilize that feature as well. And I think we have some results here already.
Okay. So the ones, the toxic pattern of thought that comes out with the highest score is wishful thinking. So placing your bet that that the solution will rise, and it's not up to you to find one. So let's see what you can do in order to prevent that, to make sure that that kind of wishful thinking does not do more harm than good to you. So the first thing is you need to acknowledge that good outcomes require effort. It's not just hoping for things to turn out okay. It will require effort from your side as well. It doesn't mean that you cannot hope for things to work your way, but it will certainly help you the odds of that going that way if you put the effort into it as well. Then focus on the process, what needs to be done in order to achieve the outcome. So don't focus so much on the outcome, but rather on the process. And ultimately, what in that process is up to you to make sure that happens. Sorry. Then a good thing that you can do is create a reflection or an action calendar, something that makes sure that you move from thinking and dreaming to action. So, for example, you can drill down up to the daily reflections and the daily actions. You can have them weekly, monthly, by quarter, by year, by 3 years, 10 years. Ideally, you would fill in the calendar at all these different levels. For example, at the weekly level, these could be the steps that you would think about every day, for example, every Monday, to write down what progress did you make last week in order to be closer to the desired outcome, and how satisfied are you with that progress? What do you need to focus on in the coming week? What are the most important things that you can do in the week that is beginning that will put you a step closer to the desired outcome? What are your key opportunities to further learn about everything that is happening, about how you are coping with the situation, and how can you develop your skills further so that you are more and more well equipped to deal with the situation? So these are examples on how you can build a reflection but also an action calendar that makes sure that you are very focused on the process and helps you deal with this wishful thinking so that it doesn't do more harm than good. So, rising to the occasion, that means failing fast, eliminate toxic patterns of thought. And the third thing is to make sure that you align your actions with your values. What this means is making sure that you act in an integral way. And why is this so important? Well, it's important because it is in your values that lies the way, the unique way that you perceive and view the world. And there's where is your relevancy and distinctiveness. And it is when you translate that into actions that you actually are able to think differently. And it is when you think differently from all other people that you start getting creative and finding solutions, different solutions for the same problems. So making sure that you are aligning your actions with your own values is a way to secure that you pump up your creativity and that you can come up with different solutions. And it has a very nice secondary effect, which is it will allow you to sleep well at night. Because in times of crisis, with all the uncertainty, you cannot secure the outcome. But if you follow your values, you know that you are doing everything that's within your power, and that at least allows you to sleep well at night. So one good thing to do when you are in a crisis is making sure that you know your values. What are the values, your core values, that you don't want to abdicate? These, for example, are my values, but they are my own values. It doesn't mean that you need to have these. Quite the contrary. You should have between 5 and 7. So more than 7 is too complex to think about them every time that you are having second thoughts on what to do in a given situation. Less than that might not give you enough room for that, enough clues. So what can you do to find your values if you already don't know them? Well, this is an interesting exercise you can do. First, start by thinking about 3 people that you admire. Now, it can be people that are still alive or dead. They can be close to you, relatives. It can be people that you work with or used to work, people that you don't even know personally, but they have done something in the world that you think that's worth your admiration. So think about 3 people. Once you get those 3 people, think about what are the behaviors they have that makes you admire them. Most likely behind those behaviors, or by the way you describe those behaviors, you are already writing the values that are your values. So this is a nice reflection you can do in order to find your values. But if you want something that is more, let's say, pragmatical, this is a test, a free test available online that you can do, the 24-character strength. It's in viacharacter.org, so I don't have nothing to do with this website and with this company, but they have a very interesting test, and they list by priorities these 24 characters, and when you pick the first 7, most likely they will be very in line with your core values. So 2 ways to find your values, but make sure you know them and then you stick with them and you reflect them in your actions. Finally, 4th step to rise to the occasion: be grateful. Be grateful for the things, the positive things that are happening in your life, that they are not a direct result of your actions. And there are a lot of things happening in your life that have a positive impact on you. Maybe you are not just so focused to see them, but they are happening all the time. And I'm not just talking about big stuff like landing a huge contract from a client right in the middle of the crisis. I'm also talking about the small stuff, just when you are feeling a little bit desperate and you look at your children and you see a smile in their face that just lights you up and make you just feel a little bit more lighter, or some stranger that has a an act of kindness towards you in the street. So everything counts. People that are more grateful, they benefit a lot. They become much more optimistic, joyful, enthusiastic, determined, strong. These are all keys aspects that develop resilience. And resilience is something that is absolutely critical in order to be able to cope with a moment of crisis. It also allows you to fall asleep faster, sleep longer, feel more refreshed, which, by the way, helps your immune response. So for these times that we are living, it's even a great side effect. And finally, other people perceive you as being more supportive, kind, helpful, and they tend to give back to you and pay you in the same coin. So there's a lot of benefits in developing a gratitude attitude. So how can you do this? Well, one simple exercise you can do is every day, at the end of the day, for example, just write down the 3 things that happen to you that day that were outside your control and had a positive impact on you. So write them, give it a title, describe briefly what happened and what was the positive impact. Do this every day, and most likely at the end of between 2 weeks and 3 weeks, you will start noticing that you are facing the challenges in your life in a different light. I'm almost finishing. Just share with you a little story. I don't do exactly this exercise. I do a variant of this exercise. I have a son that is now 12 years old, and we've been doing something since he was about 5 or 6 years old, which was to I took him in bed every night, and he tells me the 3 things that happened to him that day that were positive, and I tell him my 3 things. And we've been doing this ever since. At the beginning of this school year, he was really excited to get back to school, to meet again his friends. It was a day only with playing at the playground, and he was so excited, jumping and running everywhere, that he fell at a certain point and he felt bad and he broke his arm. So he spent the entire afternoon in the hospital with pain, and it was really not the best thing to happen as you imagine. Well, after dinner, when I took him to bed, the first thing he says to me is, "You know, Dad, despite the fact that I broke my arm today, the day was 85% good, and I'm looking forward for tomorrow." This is the power of gratitude. So here you have the 4 steps to develop a rising to the occasion attitude: fail fast, experiment a lot, eliminate toxic patterns of thought, align your actions with your values, and develop a grateful attitude. Make sure that you don't become a rain frog. Thank you very much for your attention and time. I hope you enjoyed this small conversation about this topic, and we are open for your comments and questions.
So we're going to have, again, both open, the chat and the Q&A box. If you want to just let that sink in for a second and let us know what we could circle back to for you, or any questions, please feel free to type in the chat directly. Getting a lot of feedback already about how beautiful that story was about your son. The gratitude piece definitely resonated. Very helpful. We had several here actually joining us too from Portugal, several of our guests in the audience. Welcome.
Miguel, we have a question on the Q&A here for you. And this person asked, maybe touch on one or two more of the poll responses, please. So the next one that ranked was anxiety and constant stress. That was the next one.
Okay, that's a good point. We certainly have time to cover another one. So let's get back to that one. Dealing with stress. Okay. So dealing with stress, first thing is you need to teach your body to get out of the stress response. So just to level down the adrenaline that is being pumped in your body. And the good thing is that you have a mechanism within you that is very suited to do exactly that, which is your breathing. I mean, it's interesting the relationship that we have with our breath. It is our emotion state affects the breathing. So when you are stressed and anxious, so you are being dominated by fear, and fear affects your breathing because you start breathing really fast, right? And it's very shallow, and it's up here in the top of your lungs. So the first thing you can do is, once you realize that you are under all this stress, is bring down the breathing, because the process works the other way around as well. When you control the breathing can control your emotions. So one good exercise that you can do is what is called the square breathing. What that means is, what you'll do is you follow a pattern of breathing that it sort of follows the sides of a square. So imagine that you have an imaginary square like this. So you start by breathing, pause, then you exhale, then pause, and then you inhale again. Okay. And what you want to do is make sure that you inhale with your nose, and you exhale with your mouth, so that you get enough oxygen to your brain, and you try to bring down the breathing to your stomach and below, to your abdomen. Not as much as in here, but with your abdomen. So you begin like, then pause, then pause. And you keep on doing these, and as you get more comfortable, you can even increase the sides of your imaginary square. Right? And you should do this for about 2 minutes, it's enough. And by just bringing down your breathing, you will see that your anxiety just starts lowering. Then one thing is important is to acknowledge the hardship. These are hard times that we are living. Acknowledge that. It's not you are not creating phantoms. You are not creating an illusion. It is a hardship. So acknowledge that. Now, identify, once you do this, you are more prepared now to identify how can you see the situation in a new, more positive light. Evaluate eventually even whom and what can help you cope better with this situation. Because one thing that we tend to do is we think that we have to face everything by ourselves. These are our challenge, but it doesn't need to be this way. You can get help by other people, professional help, help from friends, help from colleagues, help from a leader, a mentor, or help from tools, from training, from webinars. I mean, there's a lot of places that you can look for inspiration and for concrete help to help you deal with the situation. And another thing that is important is if you come to the conclusion that there are some action plans that you need to put in place that are hard, think and focus on, by doing those things, how will that make someone else's life easier or better? For example, one thing that I think is incredible hard, and I've been through this before back in the financial crisis in 2008. There's a point where you see that one of the options that you need to take is just to reduce your team, fire some people. That's a hard thing to do. But think about how are you making other people's life easier or better? You are increasing the chance of the survival of your company, and with that, the other people in the team that remain have a better chance of keeping their jobs and continuing working. So focus on the good that comes out of those hard decisions that you need to take. So these are a few steps that will help you in moments of crisis to deal with the stress.
Great, thank you for that answer. We have another one that just came in, and it says, do you believe that in the near future that CEOs will be aware of the mental difficulties their employees are going through and adapt their companies to better reach their employees?
Well, that's a good question. That's an excellent question. Well, I think that we are witnessing that change already, to be honest, and it was prior to this crisis. I mean, in August last year, the top 100 CEOs of the top companies in the USA, they join up and they release, and they come to the conclusion, and they release a memo saying that CEOs need to focus more on the good of all stakeholders and not just on the profits. This is a huge realization, and it was not, and it's something that is still sinking in, because what this means is that it's not all about maximizing shareholders' value. It's also about taking care of all the other stakeholders, which are employees, the community where the company is lying, suppliers, partners, clients, and so on. And so just this step is a recognition that companies and leaders need to better deal with all different aspects of all stakeholders, namely of their employees, and the mental health is certainly one aspect that is critical, because we see more and more people getting to a burnout situation, and burnout is just wasting people's talent. I mean, there's absolutely no need to push people to the limits that they can fall into burnout. That's just wasting talent.
We had another comment, Miguel, in the chat box, and basically that question is around something we touched on earlier, and the request for a little bit more clarification around focus on the process, not the outcome.
Okay, that's a good point. So that has to do when we were talking about wishful thinking. Focus on the process means, well, focusing on what needs to happen in order for you to get the outcome. So by focusing on the process, you get a more clarity on what needs to be your role in the process in order for you to get the outcome. And by doing that, you can have a sense of where you should focus your energy, your actions, in order to make sure that you do get the desired outcome. So I hope that clarifies what was intended specify.
Interesting too, when you create a process, how that outcome sometimes changes as you're experimenting, right, in this journey.
Yes, absolutely.
So not to underestimate that we sometimes think we have a very precise outcome in mind and think that's the one and only possible or best ideal outcome, when in fact the process sometimes shows you some modifications to that, right? And really hopefully have you reflect during the process, is that still what I want?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And by sometimes by getting small outcomes that are milestones in the process, we realize that those milestones sometimes are even more important than the outcome that we started to begin with.
Anything else? Again, please all feel free to still utilize your chat. We have just about a few minutes left here to circle back to a few things that may have popped up for you while we were going through this presentation. And we're giving everybody a little bit more time to think about what they just heard. Lots to absorb. Please also, we had here Anna Pinto. She was the one with the question regarding the focus on process, not outcome. Let us know if this was providing some clarity for you.
One more question that's come through, Miguel, is when you feel anxious, what is the first thing you do to feel better?
Well, to be honest, ever since I've learned this breathing technique, it really comes natural to me now, and it really helps me to calm down, and just it ignites my drive to think in terms of action. Okay, so what can I do? But before I am able to get in that mode, I need to level up, to balance my chemicals in the body, and the breathing is something that it really produces the results. So I really recommend you to try.
There's so many different breathing techniques too, right? When I just thought about this with your box, there is the total opposite, which is the breath of fire.
Yeah, exactly. Or the dragon breathing.
Think of it, but we have breathing techniques to almost really tackle any situation, right? That would help to shift energy within your body and get you into a better state to deal with whatever is fronting you, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's no euphemism when we say that breathing is life. I mean, you can control almost any state of mind through your breathing, and that's why you have so many different, because you can need different states of mind for different occasions. So that's something that is really worth digging into a little bit more, in how can you use your breathing in order to control more your states of mind.
We have about just a couple more minutes, so I just want to reemphasize with everyone, thank you for the great questions. But you have a world-class coach here with decades of experience available for your live questions. So take advantage. If there's something itching at you or you're being a little shy, get the question out there. We'd love to hear it. Well, we've got one that just popped in here. Maybe touch maximizing rather than satisfaction. Maybe this person can elaborate a little bit.
Sure. Well, the maximizing, to be honest, is very close to the perfectionism. So when you, the maximizing is about always wanting to get the best out of every experience. every time that you go on holidays is not just enjoying your holidays, it needs to be the best holidays ever. And this gets really tiring, just to seek always the best experience for everything and the best outcome for everything, the best presentation. Now, in order to be able to cope with this, you need to develop the sense of what is the good enough? When is it that something is just good enough and that's okay? I mean, we tend to associate something to be good enough as something that is wacky. I mean, it's a result that is so-so. But actually, that's not what the words mean. I mean, good enough, it means exactly that. It's something that is good enough to satisfy you. So that means that you need to understand what is the level of satisfaction that it takes you to feel that that particular need is resolved, and so that you can then be settled and content with achieving that level of satisfaction. Because the maximizing, what it does is, it doesn't allow you to savor your experiences. Because your brain keeps thinking, is this the best it could be? What could I do? What else could I do in order to become even better? And by always thinking this way, what is preventing is for you to be in the moment, be present in the moment, and just enjoying what is happening right now.
Thank you. We have time for one final question. This question is, what important main lesson have you learned from having your own company?
Whoa, that's a huge question. That's a huge question. I've learned so many lessons. Again, I really have a hard time choosing the best or the most valuable, again, maximization, most valuable lesson. I would rather say that for the time that I'm living right now, the most valuable lesson I've learned with my own business is that when you have your own business, you are faced with sometimes with very tough decisions. And though in those moments is when it matters the most to stick with your values. Because when you don't stick with your values and you compromise those, it just begins a snowball. A snowball of negative impacts. You start compromising other stuff. You start not feeling as being yourself. You start becoming someone else that isn't you, and that just starts take you to places, to negative places that triggers a lot of reactions, that not just mental but also even physical. I remember that at a certain point I dealt with someone in the company because I believed that person was really precious and we couldn't live without that person in the business. I put up with some things from that person that in retrospective I wouldn't have done that today, and by doing that I had to override some of my values, and that just doing that built a tension around my neck all the time and around my back, and it ended up giving me 3 discal hernias, and I'm sure that was the beginning of the entire process. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of being true to your values.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that answer.
Okay. My pleasure. So is there any additional questions?
We were able to circle back with everyone. I don't see anything new coming on, but I want to thank everybody who has been with us along this journey of, I think we're in the 9th week of supporting everyone here with some great insight and techniques of how to thrive and really develop excellence as a leader, specifically in times of crisis, and really get some great immediately applicable action steps to help yourself get to the next level and shift to a place from where you can really start planning the next phase. And how do you like to emerge from this current situation? Who would you like to be as a leader coming out of this current crisis, and develop resilience, as you also touched on, Miguel, you know, to handle and face things as they come at us at faster and faster speeds, right? Yeah. So want to thank everybody for joining us here today, especially Miguel, our expert here on this topic, joining us from Portugal tonight, I can say, for your time zone. And please don't miss the invitation to try one of our latest products from LeggUP Labs, our Career Pulse Assessment. You will see as you log out of today's webinar. We wish all of you a wonderful remainder of today and this week. Please feel free to reach out to leggup.com with any questions you have or feedback afterwards. We always appreciate to hear from you guys. And again, thank you, Miguel, for sharing your insights and wonderful experiences and stories around.
Thank you for the invitation. It was my pleasure, and I'm very grateful to be here with everyone and just hearing your thoughts and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. And until next time, we wish you guys all the best. And again, thank you for joining us today for Rising to the Occasion. Bye-bye.